Hello everyone and welcome back to another LEGO MOC review where today we're going to be going over two different versions of the same vehicle. I also wanted to mention that this is the heavy armored version from the Gorman Massacre, but I'm going to keep using the wheat-filled background because they look nice, and even though it's just the vehicle's variant, it does take place on the same planet as the TIE Avenger. However, this is also easily modifiable to make it look into the lighter version like you see in the first arc. You might be asking why I made two different models. Now, the real reason is because I was commissioned to make this, and they ended up not wanting the first model to be as small as it was, so I ended up upgrading it and going with a larger model. However, I decided to take my failure and use it as a way to teach you the importance of scale and patience. I also wanted to use this to show how preferences affect the final model. When I was asked to make this, I was told to do it at minifigure scale, and I did my research. I found, from a Reddit thread, that the tank is based off the SDKFZ 231 and similar 233 8-wheeled armored cars, and I did the math. The initial mistake I made was going for 1/45th minifigure scale. This bases it off of the height of a minifigure, making it the smallest scale and meaning that it would be quite tight for them, but I was determined to make it the same size as a Speed Champion set. This would severely limit the capacity of features and details that I would be able to pack into it. Instead, I was asked to make it larger. Luckily, the first thing I did was make the treads, and I built around that. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to call the larger version Playscale because it would match a real LEGO set size and has some play features. However, they are both at minifigure scale, just different measurements. Apart from the size, the differences may be more subtle. The first model is more accurate to the exact scene from which it came. It's rusty and has discolored drips down the paint. It also uses simpler techniques that work for its size, but don't give it nearly enough detail. Although both models can house a driver, the smaller one is cozy. You have to remove two pieces at the top to remove the minifigure. His feet also sit under the engine. This engine is important, and I will get back to it later. But both tanks can hold minifigures, but obviously the larger one holds significantly more. Also, the angles are different, and I was able to get the proper slope on the larger model, and I used different pieces in the front for the grille. The way the sides are constructed are also different. I wanted to use a smoother 1x4 14-degree slope piece, but that doesn't exist in light gray yet, so I had to fix it with a different piece. Also, the details on the side are different. With the smaller model, I had to get creative with fitting the detail in such small places by using grille tiles sticking out the side. With the larger one, I was able to make it larger with 14 studs to make up the detail on either side. The other vents are also more apparent. Back to the engine, which I mentioned was important earlier, I made a lot of changes to the front, except this engine area. This was probably the second thing that I came up with while designing this. It's put together very uniquely and uses a technique that I recently learned. Although I knew of the technique itself for a while, I wasn't sure of how to make it work. I recently found a video of a build that used this, taking a cupboard piece and putting the handle into the hole of a Technic pinhole. To me, this was brilliant, and I made sure to include this because it is perfectly spaced out and adds the perfect detail. The first thing I thought of while redesigning was how to get the angle at the front that I had previously omitted. While I was sitting in a parking lot, the idea to use this piece came to me, and I held onto it. I also changed the viewport as it was easier to do it this way. Also, the transparent pieces may not be smaller windows, so I kept it on the smaller model, but for the larger model, they're now very thin. The cowcatcher at the front was made in two very distinct ways. Having it be made in a way that makes it look like the show is very important, but I also kept the white stripe detail. In the smaller model, I just used grill pieces. This gets the idea through, and it doesn't look bad, but I decided to upgrade it. The new version uses droid arms. All of them are gray except for one. This white one is supposed to be where the white stripe is. I also made sure to include an extra notch at the top with clip pieces, and even inverted the droid arms so that they would make the swoop on the back of it. I also want to compare where the tires would go if this was the normal version of the tank. This was the first thing that I worked on. I was going to make it too wide at first, and then I took a closer look at the model and decided on the smaller scale. I also spaced it out with one plate between the bricks, so it's still thicker than one brick, and I am proud of this tiny detail. These are both similar in design, but that does not take away from how detailed they are. I also wondered how to get the thin angled line in there. Having the angled pieces with the bar and clip was the immediate answer to me. One of the things I wanted to keep the same in the back, despite the scale differences, was the steps. I think I did a great job right away with making this, and even the grill pieces work perfectly. In the smaller model, I also created a wall between the pilot and the other crew. It may or may not actually be there, but I needed it to be just to keep it stable. The larger one has more room, and it was built in a way that makes it very unique in its connections. One thing that the smaller one doesn't have is a secret compartment. Since I didn't want the inside of the build to be made of mostly bricks, I added this hatch so that you could take it off and put in weapons, shields, thermal detonators, or whatever other cargo you'd like back there. The final thing I wanted to talk about was the angled parts. While I wasn't able to get them angled in the smaller version, the larger version is definitely an upgrade. I first figured out the angle that they needed to be at, and then connected them. It uses bar clips and angled hinge pieces to hold it together. The last thing I wanted to mention is a limitation of stud.io. The program I use doesn't have all versions of the prints for LEGO pieces because that would be way too much clutter, so although this piece is black in the render, it's supposed to be white with light gray markings, so if you do buy the instructions and order the parts, you will be getting the right thing. Instructions for both models are on Rebrickable, which is linked in the description, so tell me which one you like more. Are you into playability and size, or scale and space? So thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.